Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Management, a VUCA perspective. We are discussing fundamentals, and I am your friend and tour guide on this amazing journey, Siddhi Prad Bhattacharya. We are currently on the 18th module of this amazing discovery, and we are discussing how VUCA aspects actually affect a lot of business decision making, especially when it comes to marketing and especially when it comes to running the business at large. In this particular context, what a very, very famous entrepreneur, also the author of the book Entrepreneur, Tim Ferriss, has said is that creating demand is actually very hard. Now, filling demand is definitely easier. So, therefore, the task that any marketer must walk into is not to create a product first. What they need to do is you seek the customer first. Find out who they are, what makes them tick, what gives them joy, what their problems are, and how to solve them. And once you've done that, you've defined your customer, you then develop a product which suits and solves their immediate requirements. Then you have supply which meets the customer's demand. The intent here is that as demand grows, automatically the supply and your ability to provide said supply is also going to grow in the same vein. With that in mind, we must approach this entire subject of market demand.
Now, what we do when we want to manage the constant flow of marketing demand is we understand the marketing environment and conduct market research which can help us identify all these marketing opportunities. The company which we are in at that point in time must then measure and forecast the size, the growth, and how much profit we can actually get out of this opportunity. You can forecast your sales, and this must be prepared by marketing and used by finance to raise the cash necessary for investments and operations. You have to manufacture to establish the necessary capacity and the output required to meet this particular demand, and you need to purchase the right amount of supplies, not more, not less. And you have to have human resources, and therefore you need to hire more workers as and when required. If the forecast is off the mark, then the company will face an excess and inadequate inventory at that point in time. So, therefore, if estimates are based on demand, managers need to define exactly what they mean by market demand. So, let us get into the structure of the entire conversation. We will understand what it means. First and foremost, let us understand the concepts that go into demand measurement. If you want to understand market and company demand, you need to understand what market demand is first. So, it represents the total volume of purchases that could be made by a desired customer group, people you have defined as the people you want to sell to finally, and in which particular geographic area, which particular specific time frame are they going to buy things mostly, and what's given the set of marketing conditions that you will be actually looking for. It provides a overall macro view of what's possible in that particular market. For example, the total demand of smartphones in India in 2024 among urban tech savvy millennials. So, when you see urban tech savvy and millennials, you're defining the age, you're defining the location, and you're defining a sort of a certain type of capability that that particular audience has. They are tech savvy. So, you're trying to sell smartphones to them. So, which makes the demand meet the particular supply, and you're talking about the year 2024. So, all of these things actually measure up the entire market demand scenario. Now, company demand therefore refers to the company's share of the total market demand. So, if the market demand is X, you will have a delta X segment of which you will be able to cater to within that entire larger pie. And this will be at varying levels of your marketing efforts. It depends on how well your organization's offerings are perceived by your intended customers vis-a-vis whatever else competition is going to throw at them, and therefore you will have to measure what kind of value you are providing, at what price point you are selling, and what kind of after sales service you are providing. Any organization which increases its marketing budget to highlight superior camera quality may capture a larger share of the smartphone market, because people nowadays not only use it for calling, obviously they use it for a variety of other things, including capturing data in the form of images and video. Now, your market forecast typically indicates the demand level at the current level of industry-wide marketing efforts. It reflects the short to medium term reality of market activity. So, it is given in a specific time frame and without assuming extraordinary shifts. So, all your VUCA factors typically do not get mentioned or do not get covered in this setting. Company sales forecasts typically predict the company's future sales based on the marketing strategy that they have, and external factors are also taken into consideration like competition and some sort of economic conditions that are prevailing. The two important tools here are: one, sales quota, a motivational target which you are aiming to gain so that the entire organization profits from that particular achievement, and they are often set slightly above the estimated sales to challenge the sales team that yes, this is a target you must achieve and that will give you certain kind of benefits. You set, for example, a $10 million sales quota for a certain quarter, and through that you drive aggressive sales efforts from your team. Sales budgets are more or less the conservative estimate used for purchasing, production and financial planning. For example, you allocate $8 million for quarter 4 and anticipating that actual sales will fall slightly below the optimistic forecast of 10 million which you have put up. Now, in terms of total market potential, this actually gives you the total addressable size of the market, the maximum sales that would occur if every single buyer in the market purchased under ideal conditions. So, this is a very, very ideal, more than optimistic scenario. This assumes that high market spend will happen, there will be strong favorable economic conditions to support you, and there will be zero market constraints. This calculation gives into consideration it multiplies potential buyers, average purchase quantity, and it also includes price. For example, in a very, very booming economy, the total market potential for electric cars might include all environmentally conscious urban dwellers, everybody who is able to purchase a car. And in terms of company sales potential, the maximum achievable sales for a company within the market potential will realistically be the figure where you are constrained by competitors, loyal customers and limits of your marketing effectiveness. For example, even with a significant advertising push, an organization might only get 20% of the market, the total addressable market of electric cars, due to strong loyalty towards brand A, which may be a competitive brand. Again, if we are to just look at all these aspects in one single shot, market demand is the total opportunity, company demand narrows it to what is achievable for that organization. Accurate forecasts give you actionable insights for effective marketing and operational planning. Potential analysis helps visualize long-term growth possibilities, and it also gives you the identified market gaps which you can tap into. Your competitive dynamics, understanding who your competitors are and how much customers are loyal to you, are significant factors in determining actual sales performance. And finally, forecasts and potential measurements are dynamic. They keep evolving with changes in consumer behavior, economic conditions and marketing strategies. So, now let us get into the next part, which is forecasting market demands. Now, literally market forecasting has become an art form because it is no sure short answer, it is anticipating buyer behavior. So, there is a certain amount of estimation, guesswork, gut feel, all of these things involved. So, these have specific conditions to support strategic decisions, and the application would be, for example, if you want to understand the demand for major durables like automobiles or appliances, this is where demand forecasting comes in. Consumer surveys are a good way to do this, where research firms assess how much the people want to buy asking targeted questions. For example, do you want to buy a car in the next 6 months? So, this gives a time frame, this gives an exact product which they want to buy, and the answers are taken up and then assessed. Surveys often include insights on personal finances and economic expectations. So, your environment and your personal ability to purchase is also brought into play, and results are aggregated into indices like consumer confidence, how much the consumer feels that yes, they can go ahead and spend, which is something like a confidence board, and consumer sentiment. So, University of Michigan actually has done a lot of work in this particular regard. So, it actually taps into where people feel that yes, they should own a car, the reasons behind it. So, a lot of stuff in that particular aspect comes into play. Now, there are hierarchies of forecasting wherein you have got macroeconomic forecasts which gives you overall market understanding and key factors like the gross domestic product, the inflation at the moment, and what kind of unemployment is being faced by that country or economy. So, it gives a broad economic context to purchasing behavior. Then industry wide forecasts are there which actually evaluate the total market demand of that particular industry based on macroeconomic trends. So, these are two interlinked factors which are brought into play, and within that context you get to see what company sales forecasts are, which showcase the expected sales based on assumed market share and what kind of marketing plans you have chosen to deploy. Now, where we go into forecasting techniques, there are internal forecasting where companies develop forecasts in-house using previous sales trends, using marketing data that they have received. So, consumer feedback is important, and proprietary insights which they have found out and which is not available with competition. In terms of external sources, they look at specialized firms like Gartner Group, Forrester Research. These people do industry level research and maybe at times economy level. So, it could actually cover an entire country as well. They provide in-depth forecasts for specific industries and technologies that gives a way to predict where your particular organization is going to perform, because you are part of that particular nation and that economy and therefore, that particular industry vertical market. Futurist organizations like Institute for the Future also are there, which offer speculative long term scenarios given certain factors and the way they are shifting the economic factors as well. Information bases are for forecast what people say. So, surveys and expert opinions which we have discussed, what people do. This is typically you test your product in the market, you see and actually assess buyer behavior at the ground level, and you look at what traditionally people have done. So, there is historical sales data and statistical analysis to help you out here. Now, in terms of specific forecasting methods, you have got industry sales and market share as well. This is shown through trade associations which publish total sales data, and firms can help assess their market performance in comparison to the others. There are companies which do syndicated research like Nielsen Media Research, and it provides specific category detailed data. Then you have got survey of buyers intentions, which you can look at how people plan their purchases, and you can actually look at industrial machinery and consumer durables which are purchased. Now, conjoint analysis are there which explains how consumers prioritize product attributes like features and price. So, this is a statistical method in which you look at answers from people and you look at how they compare features and price and actually arrive at a final trade off. Then there are sales force opinions which you get from the ground level, your team which is interacting with consumers and customers. Here there are grassroots approach where your sales reps actually provide forecasts based on their field insights, and then there are various challenges in this. At times reps may either understate or overstate projections based on their personal biases, and biases, because these are human interactions, they tend to creep in, because they at the end of the day are nothing more than opinions. So, you must want to check this again through research. Then there are experts who provide their opinion, people who are from the industry, they are consultants, they are distributors themselves, and there are various trade associations which have their data sets from which they comply and give you an expert opinion. There is a Delphi method which estimates what the sales would be through multiple rounds of expert input, which is done categorically after each particular expert has provided their input, and that is used up by other experts to arrive at a nuance or a certain industry opinion. There are other analyses which come to the aid of organizations. For example, you can look at what your past sales have been and analyze your output from there. You can look at time series, which indicates what trends are currently going on, whether there is a cyclicity to purchase, there are seasonalities which can be looked at, and this you can use for the futuristic forecast projections. Also, there is exponential smoothing, which combines recent sales trends with historical data and prioritizes recent trends over the historical data, because that is the immediate factor burning in the minds of consumers. Then you have got statistical demand analysis, where you examine causal factors. For example, how much income somebody has, what kind of marketing spend you are doing, and this can actually affect the kind of sales you are going to finally achieve. Then there are econometric models, where you have got equations mathematically predicting the relationships between the market variables, which you have done through an analysis of historical data and the analysis of recent trends. The exponential smoothing is also part of this entire econometric modeling methodology. You also have a market test method, where you directly gauge buyer behavior for new products and see how well they are responding to it, and how your distribution channels are actually working to support this through live market tests. You do pilots, you run a specific test in a specific limited geography and see the response. These could actually predict how well your product will do once you open up the floodgates and let it flow everywhere. There are steps which you can take into consideration here. For example, you can put in A/B testing. So, you can test a market which is a challenging market for you. You can look at a challenging market vis-a-vis a strong market, and so you can actually see where to invest, how much to invest, and what will actually get you the necessary threshold sales. In terms of forecasting, what you can look at is, you can look at aligning your production, you can look at aligning your marketing campaigns, and what kind of monies you will be spending to achieve these things. So, your financial strategies also come into play here in a big way. Again, you may look at industry benchmarking. You evaluate how well you have been performing against the total market growth, because you also have to see whether a particular market or a particular industry vertical itself is growing and there is enough and more market demand. If there is enough market demand for it and it is growing, then you may be able to garner more and more in terms of sales and maybe add some points to your market share as well. If the particular vertical in question itself is shrinking, then you will have a harder time selling your product or service, because competition will also want to have a pie and they will want to take their share out of it. You will be able to support your decisions of entering, whether you want to go to new geographies and whether you want to launch new products, because forecasting allows you to understand which way consumer trends will fly in the future. And you can use advanced tools here, including the big keyword today, machine learning. This helps you take your big data and analyze it through algorithms, and machine learning typically learns over iterations. So, you have to train the model over some data, and each time new data is fed to that model, it tests out the algorithm and it repairs whatever it deems as a requirement to come to a better understanding of how to deal with that kind of final data output that it needs to give you the projections. Now, it is not just about being there out there in the market and being able to only forecast what kind of sales are going to occur. You also need to, for better marketing, get a hold of your marketing productivity. So, when it comes to measuring market productivity, what you need to do is, you need to factor in a lot many more items in the entire mix. The first thing which affects marketing outcomes would be your consumer standpoint on who you are as a brand and what their association is with you. So hence, are they aware of you, which is measured through brand awareness? Are they loyal to you, which is measured through loyalty studies? And what kind of projection do you have? So your brand image. These things don't happen overnight, so they take time to materialize. So brand marketers have to be aware of these particular facts. And if there are any internal or external changes during this particular period, it can have a ripple cause and effect which you need to analyze and therefore input insights from in your marketing efforts. When you're assessing productivity, marketing metrics come into play. So you can quantify the effects of marketing activities, for example, return on investment and customer acquisition. So return on investment shows you how much profit you are making from your marketing efforts. You've put in a certain kind of spend, and how much are you actually able to increase your sales, and therefore you are able to spend less but gain more from it. And customer acquisition, because if you've got to acquire a customer, there is a certain cost involved. That cost is what gives you a marketing spend, because when you spend on marketing, you are taking consumers through levels of awareness and you have taken them through interest. So it's awareness, interest, desire, and finally action. This is a fairly widely used model in marketing called the IDA model. So that IDA model automatically takes consumers through these particular steps before they actually take the action of buying your particular product. So they have to be aware of who you are, they have to be interested in what you are trying to say, they must desire you, so that they feel the need that yes, you pip everybody else who's in that particular competitive space, and so therefore they take the action to buy into you. So hence they take all these steps, and at each stage you have to coax them to move to the next. So communication comes into play, marketing efforts come into play, the user experience comes into play, a lot of factors come into play here, and each of them cost, and so therefore what kind of marketing spends is getting you what kind of sales. So you're getting the ROI and the customer acquisition cost from these. Then you have to also look at the marketing mix modeling, where you can see the causal relationships which showcase how specific activities drive certain outcomes. So in the marketing mix, whether you're going to use ads, whether you're going to use events, whether you're going to do promos, whether you're going to do content, a variety of things actually pushes the consumer towards all these steps which we have seen in IDA. So all these ads, events, promos, content and much more, they all help towards creating the conclusion of the action from the consumer's end, and there are causal relationships. You've done one, you've got certain incremental benefits from that. Marketing dashboards also exist which help you track, analyze and share whatever marketing insights are there from all the metrics and the models that you have brought into play, and it helps align your marketing strategies with whatever you've set out to achieve for your organization. So when you were actually evaluating marketing performance, you start with marketing metrics. What you do is you use tools to quantify, compare and interpret your marketing performance. There are lots of examples of metric use. Mary Kay Cosmetics, for example, has some long-term metrics like how aware are people, so market awareness, what kind of trial rates do they exhibit when they are actually trying products out, the consultant productivity, how your consultants brought onto the stage to help push your marketing activities are actually affecting the sales at the end of the day. And then there are short-term ad metrics, so how many ads were served and how many served ads were seen. Website traffic, which is a resultant of how many people actually finally landed up on your website. Then there are purchase conversions, so of the people who landed up, how many actually ended up paying. So Virgin America is another example. They've got online metrics where they do the cost per acquisition, something we were discussing just now, and then there is cost per click, which is how many times they are clicking and what is the cost involved in each time somebody clicks that particular ad. and cost per milieu. Cost per milieu is ad impressions best milieu, which is 1000 impressions. So, every 1000 impressions has a certain cost. So, therefore, cost per milieu, and the total dollars which they have spent for natural and paid search. Natural search is organic. So, paid search obviously is paid. You put your listing in a certain place by buying that listing or bidding for that listing. And how does that translate to offline tracking? And so, you can actually look at your marketing spends and how they have resulted in actual sales conversions. Another brand, Mindbody, they have weekly analytics. What they do is they check their website navigation, the kind of interaction people are having at their website. They are looking at the social media engagement, and they are measuring it by demographics. So, you are measuring it by age, you are measuring it by gender, you are measuring it by location, you are measuring it by kind of employment. It depends on what as an organization you have put in your marketing understanding of your end consumer. There are a lot more demographic factors which you can put in as filters to get the exact target audience you have been wishing for. And then there is permission marketing, where the brand has actually taken permission from the consumer and said, are you okay with receiving communication from us about our products and services? If they said yes, then you can send them that particular literature. And similarly, emails also become one of these factors where you can have interactions with your end target audience. So, in terms of evaluating how it works, you have got certain short term results. So, you have seen profit and loss, which can be shown through sales turnover and shareholder value being created out of it. And then over long terms, you can actually see how your brand grows. So, there are brand equity metrics. So, for example, customer awareness, customer loyalty, market share growth, perceived quality. These are all in response to certain questions you have thrown out in the form of a survey or something. And how many people have you actually got them to buy again and again. So, therefore, retention and your actual complaint rates. Have your complaints come down? So, are you able to service them better? All of these factors form the entire set of evaluation. This is not exhaustive. You will have to see a very many other factors also coming into play, but this sort of gives you a certain semblance of what all can become part of your evaluation of your marketing activities. Short term results, and beyond that you have got also internal metrics as well, where you have got companies tracking internal factors like innovation and employee engagement. You have got example 3M, the adhesive manufacturing brand, they monitor revenue from recent innovations because they are at the cutting edge of innovation. So, they keep coming out with new and new products matching a certain particular consumer need. So, how are those consumers facing a better, a happier scenario because of whatever innovation has been brought about. So, 3M, one of the innovating pioneers, actually tracks if the new innovations have generated a certain expected amount of revenue. It also emphasizes the importance of employees as the first customer. See, at the end of the day, it is all about the belief system. If the employee is absolutely sold on its own company products, then at the end of the day, they will be not only passionately marketing it to the target audience, they will also be ensuring that they showcase very proudly that they are also first customers of their own created products and services. That goes a long way to showcase how customers within the organization, they become the first people who give testimonials. And why are testimonials important? We have discussed this before. Testimonials are important because they create loyalty. They showcase that somebody has used it and they have been the better for it after having used it. So, they are happy to try it out. Your prospects are typically happier to try it out because they see somebody else having benefited from taking the plunge and investing in that certain product or service. Now, we come to a very, very important aspect of the entire marketing exercise, which is the marketing mix, which means all the activities that you can get into. And here it is not that you have to do everything, it is about a judicious choice of what all you find and deem necessary that should feel right for your audience and also should fit in with the kind of imagery that you defined for your brand at large. So, these are the marketing mix items which you put in your own specific model, and you then estimate what kind of ROI you are going to get from the marketing activities, because all of these are spread over a variety of marketing activities. So, each aspect then gets measured for its effectiveness. So, this is typically how it works. Your marketing mix modeling is an analytical approach to estimate the impact of various marketing investments. Each marketing investment is analyzed in situ, which means how is it working in place, and it is also measured in comparison. There may be a hand holding from one activity to the other. So, for example, if you have put up a poster, the poster gives a first level communication about a product or service or brand, but having given that, the poster may also have a QR code. When you scan the QR code, you land up on a digital version of that particular conversation, where you are going to interact on a website or a landing page. So, there is a certain amount of hand holding. Now, when you land on that particular page, you may have certain forms to fill up, which is a feedback mechanism, which is surveys, etc. And then you may be rewarded with a small promo for your efforts. So, there is a promotional aspect. So, they may work in silo, they may work in comparison, and they may work alongside other activities led hand in hand. So, customers, if they are held from the start point to the end point through the process of all these aspects, then it becomes even better for the customer to feel that they are taken care of, the brand is having a conversation with them, their feedback is important, and those feedback, if incorporated into the next level of marketing, is something which the customer will appreciate because they feel that they have been heard. So, it is typical human behavior being manifested in marketing form. User details from retailer scanners. So, once your product is being sold, it gets punched. So, that particular scanning punch is something which people take. Shipment records of who is being shipped, what are they being shipped, when have they purchased it last, how long have they been purchasing from that particular larger entity, and if there are certain trends which can be measured from these. So, shipment records, and typically brands like Amazon do this on a very, very large level. Then, in terms of pricing, because nowadays everything is trackable, people look at a variety of products before making their choice. In that case, what have they viewed, what have they looked at, what have they compared. So, pricing becomes an important factor here as well. And then you have got media. So, where have they received the communication about that product, brand, service, what have you from. So, the choice of media, and then what kind of promotions have you given them? Have you given them certain discounts, certain bundles, certain offers? Each of these activities has an expenditure. If you are giving tickets away for a movie, for a particular kind of purchase at a store, those tickets have to be bought. That is a promotional expenditure. If you buy it in bulk, yes, you may get a certain discount yourself when you are buying it from wherever you are getting the tickets from, but you are still spending money to pass that along as a bundled benefit to your consumers. So, hence there is a promotional expenditure at all these stages. This helps marketers allocate and optimize their marketing budgets by assessing specific activity based outcomes, because all the activities may have a sales or a brand awareness benefit angle. So, you may want the short term, which is the sales aspect, or you may have the long term, which is the brand awareness activities, etc. aspect. So, both of these aspects can be looked at in terms of what kind of marketing objectives were achieved because of said activity. Now, mathematically speaking, you use multivariate analysis in your statistical models. You bring in certain techniques like regression analysis. Regression actually helps you identify what your expectation was and where they have actually been able to hit the mark and how far away from your expectation are the particular achievements. And this can help determine the effect of individual marketing elements. For example, brand sales and market share. How much has it shifted and how much did you hope to have achieved? If it is shifting in the negative, so then you may want to go on a fact finding mission and find out what went wrong. If they are in the positive, you may want to learn and ensure you repeat your successes by seeing what went right. Commonly used packaged goods companies like P&G, Colgate, Clorox, they typically go into all these activities to ensure that they are able to achieve these particular aspects going forward. Now, you also need to be clear as to what marketing mix modeling can achieve and what it can't. It helps you identify the ad budget inefficiencies. So, what items didn't work for you, hence wasted expenditures. It also determines optimal spending levels. So, it tells you what you could have spent, what you actually did spend, and what the minimum level of spending must have been or could have been. So, between these you find out what your optimum spending levels are. वो फ्लिकर कर रहा है. जी सर. Now, moving on to the limitations aspect of it, you need to look at how you can focus on incremental growth. All the growth that you wish to achieve will not happen overnight. You need to ignore at times baseline sales and long term effects for this, because every single stage is one stage leading to the next. There is a cause and effect. You may have certain carryovers from your previous segments which may have an effect on the current state, and so on and so forth. So, you need to understand what are those factors and see at each particular stage which factors are carrying on. So, you can establish trends, which factors are a one-off. The more you are able to define this, you will be able to understand what kind of true incremental growth you will be able to achieve over the longer period of time. And in terms of metrics, there is a limited metric integration that is possible. It misses key metrics like customer satisfaction, brand awareness and equity, which cannot be completely brought into the marketing mix model alone. This has to be separately investigated through a proper study of each of these aspects, and it also tends to exclude competitive and trade metrics because your marketing is yours, your spend is yours. So, you may have a benchmarking, but at the end of the day your activities will define what kind of output you have been able to generate. So, this often tends to overlook the role of competitors, trade promotions, sales force efforts, and these aren't really part of the exact marketing efforts, because sales force efforts are very human to human interactions. We've talked about the human to human interactions in previous conversations. So, that is something which works very, very deeply at this level. It also typically consumes larger budgets. So, these budgets also have a very, very fuzzy way of playing out here. You may not know exactly which particular budget has had an outcome which you are observing currently. In all, what you need to understand that there is certain value for marketers out of doing the marketing mix modeling, and here you can try and get more and more precise insights for better marketing accountability, ensuring you find out which people have been effective, which processes have been effective. You can look at which TG has received you best and which particular activities have found favor with them. So, then automatically you can either choose to not do things that have not worked in your favor or do things more that have found favor with your consumers. And it helps get the marketer to get smarter decisions going and maximize the return on investment across all the campaigns and channels where it integrates. So, the next part of it is getting to understand everything, everywhere, all at once. This typically happens in the form of dashboards. Now, dashboards give you real time insights because they are collecting data from the ground level through interactions, and they give you the inputs which help you get smarter decisions going. So, let us understand first what are marketing dashboards. Dashboards are visualization tools and display real time marketing metrics going on in the market right at that moment in a very easy to digest format in the form of charts, graphs, comparative figures, etc. And they are like a car's instrument panel. So, they give you in the form of a dashboard. The purpose is to synthesize, so which means you aggregate certain factors and you look at them holistically and you then try and interpret both the internal factors and the external performance indicators at the same point in time, understanding what have you done right and understand what the environment has thrown at you, where you've either done well or not, and how you can actually improve your current scenario. The key components of marketing dashboards are performance metrics. We've been discussing metrics at length. These track current operational successes. For example, how well have you been able to sell, the kind of brand equity that you've been able to grow, and how are customers engaging with your product, service, your marketing activities, all of that. And it can also throw up early warning signals. It can flag off potential challenges and it can help you create proactive measures before time so that you are ready for the particular contingency when it arrives at your doorstep. So, then let us try and understand what are the features of effective dashboards. They have sophisticated visualization tools. They give you certain indications in color coded format. They will have specific symbols which showcase very easily and very clearly across a large brand, a large swath of decision makers or team members in the marketing and other departments as to what is going up, what is coming down, what is staying at the current level, and why are they in a certain way. Because you will be able to interact with them, you will be able to blow up certain segments, see what the internal metrics or factors are there in that particular segment, and it really brings data to life. It helps you look at data holistically at the macro level or minutely at the metric by metric level as well. The entire thing is based on and uses business intelligence software, and it integrates internal and external data to come up with the answers it is showing you. It also has real time indicators and helps you precisely track sales versus forecast. So, you know exactly where you stand in the current fiscal period. You projected a sales of $10 million and you spent $8 million in your marketing to try and promote that particular sales. Where have you actually reached? Have you reached $8 million? Have you reached 9? Where are you placed? And how are your sales going vis-a-vis your 10 million forecast which you thought you would achieve? It also showcases how the distribution is happening and which particular channels are working at what particular efficiency. So, is your first level distribution working fine? Are your dealers doing their job right? Are your retailers finally getting your product off shelves? Each of these aspects can be looked at in very detailed form once you start looking the dashboards. and other trends which indicate how your brand is being pursued and perceived by consumers. You can actually see the brand equity trends. You can look at share of voice, share of wallet. So, you can see how much you are seen, how much people are spending with you, and you can also measure things like top of mind awareness. So, all these factors help you understand exactly how you are placed in the consumer's mind, and you can also measure ROI from whatever campaigns you have been running. There are 4 measurement pathways through which you can use the dashboards. First, customer metrics. So, you can track the customer journey from the awareness to loyalty. So, yes, IDA may also have a final layer of loyalty. This typically happens when the action results in a good experience, repeat purchase, and advocacy. Your customer becomes your salesperson. So, all these aspects can actually affect the loyalty of your brand. These will also provide you insights into what in the customer experience has actually brought them to your side of the table, why they are perceiving your value to be a certain level, and how does your competition position themselves vis-a-vis your product. Then in terms of unit metrics, you can see how the product service sales have been going, and you can improve the efficiency by a specific geography or focus on a particular product line. And in terms of analyzing marketing the cost per unit, you can use the better margin optimization to help gain more profits. If something is selling well, then maybe you can increase the margin so that you gain more in terms of profits. In terms of cash flow metrics, you can evaluate short term financial returns, and you can look at ROI models to measure what particular marketing program has worked and which campaign has been effective. In terms of brand metrics which are longer term, so here you can assess how the perception of your brand is changing. Are they becoming healthier? Are people finding you better and more believable? And the financial implications, because if people believe you, they have heard of you, they know of you, they desire you, they are spending on you, then you seem to be moving in the right direction and will stay that way. The amount of effort required to convince the consumer to buy you will be lesser and lesser. We have talked about the cost per acquisition in the past. The better your brand health, so this is directly, this is inversely proportionate to your brand health. If brand health goes up, your cost per acquisition automatically comes down. Now, what are the benefits of using marketing dashboards? It helps you focus your marketing thinking. It helps you concentrate your organizational efforts on critical drivers. You first and foremost identify what are those insightful factors which are driving the growth of business in certain areas, and you can then take those particular critical drivers and your organization pushes more effectiveness and efficiency there. You also have improved communications because you are able to facilitate better internal collaboration between teams and understanding, so that you are able to use concerted efforts to meet your objectives. And in terms of investments, you identify high ROI activities where you are getting more returns on in your investment, and areas which need improvement, so that you can tinker and fine tune those. Also, what challenges are coming your way, what is the critique you are receiving. These are factors you need to keep in mind. The challenges and criticisms could be coming from over focusing on just pure numbers. So, some may fear that dashboards may miss the big picture because they are just focused on the numbers, and maybe at times the sentiment or the reasons behind it are completely missed out or partially missed out. There are also privacy concerns. because data usage can raise certain ethical and security issues for the organization and for the customer who has entrusted the data with you. And then there is employee pressure. So, real time metrics may create performance stress because your forecast may go up, the stress on your teams internally to achieve those particular forecasts may also go up, and hence all of these factors can come and affect you negatively as well. So, with all of these things, still dashboards definitely matter. So, whatever the criticisms, the benefit has clear insights coming in from dashboards. You can make better and more informed decisions in time, and you improve your marketing performance, and this far outweighs the risks of not using dashboards, because you're able to pull all of the data you find relevant in one particular place, look at them visually, clearly understand particular areas of work, focus your team's efforts on those particular items and let them improve over time. So, over time you will reduce metrics to the few key drivers that we have been talking about, because this helps streamline your processes and get better, more impactful business going for yourselves. So, therefore, what are the insights that will power marketing in the next level is what we need to understand. You will have to put in certain strategies to generate insights from customers. You will have to see what kind of product usage is happening. For example, Medtronic observes surgeons using their devices to identify what kind of improvements can be built in, so that the ease of use is better, the alacrity, the grip, the precision, etc., which surgeons need during the operation is something Medtronic can then provide them with. Procter & Gamble actually developed Downy single rinse after studying the laundry habits in Mexico, because rinsing, if done by hand or if it uses a certain amount of water, may actually deplete that resource or take up more time and effort for the individual doing it. So, hence the single rinse Downy ensured that the product itself was doing half of the heavy lifting. It would get the stains out and then it would go out of the fabric in a single rinse, and it would consume less water. So, with all these things, what you can do is you can ask about your problems with the current products of the consumer. What example can be seen here? Komatsu, the heavy engineering organization, they had their engineers riding with equipment operators to understand how to design better machinery, better cables, better lift capacity, how to ensure that failure was lesser when doing certain heavy duty tasks, etc. And again, Procter & Gamble, FMCG is one area where product innovation is an everyday affair. Though they created Pringles to address whatever their frustrations were of the consumer with fragile potato chips. If you ever eaten Pringles, you will see that the entire crisps inside the box, and when you take them out till the time you are biting into them, pretty much hold their shape. So, fragile potato chips get crushed and they become absolutely debris inside the packets which came before. So, inside the long box, the tin shaped box, that is how Pringles last also, and the kind of thickness which each particular wafer slice is, that helps the particular item keep its form factor as well. All of these things were looked into when it came to consumer responses, and with that product innovations were brought upon. Now, you can actually look at desire as one particular angle to test how consumers feel and want certain things. So, you can look at dream products. Now, Minolta designed a camera with a lens for softer images after a particular user actually asked for these. These help in certain typical kinds of photography which Minolta actually succeeded in providing to their end consumer. And brands, organizations, marketers need to actively keep having that feedback channel going with their end consumers. So, they need to actively solicit that feedback. Levi Strauss used youth panels, where youth participate to understand what insights were available on their kind of lifestyle, how genes play a role in their lives, what are they up to in the entire day, and how that particular brand aligns with their hopes, desires, ambitions and aspirations. Harley Davidson, the motorcycle manufacturer, collects ideas from its hog members, which are the Harley Owners Group, a very, very famous entity. When Harley came to India, they had an India version of the hog club also working, and they used to take certain inputs from the hog members as well. So, this is a constant feedback loop which organizations must have towards their end consumers, and with that the feedback that comes their way, they must utilize it in innovations or improvements, and that is a clear call of appreciation and approval for what the consumer has said. Because if the consumer continuously finds favor with whatever they are saying and the marketer at the end of the day is listening to, that helps them build more trust, because their words are heard and they also feel like they are collaborators to the brand's existence. So, when we spoke of IDA and added that layer of loyalty at the end, once you start making the audience feel like they are collaborators to the brand's destiny, and you generate the amount of trust required, then that particular loyalty aspect starts to come into the main stage.
We can also use that feedback loop which we have created so painstakingly to understand who they are and what kind of communities do they actually thrive in. So here you can create those necessary communities. For example, Lego. Lego as a brand which is into toys for children actually engages the enthusiasts. Now, enthusiasts could earlier on have been children, but as time passes they have grown up and they have become far more methodical and far more detailed in their creations. So these Lego enthusiasts, you actually engage them for feedback and you look at creating more product concepts. Once you have them, you put them out into the market, you test them, and you see how it goes from there. Apple and Harley Davidson are two brands which actually foster very, very strong user communities. There are lots of people in their user communities who help each other. So if you've got queries, your user community is strong enough, knowledgeable enough to actually take the query you have and answer it at their level itself, because they are very, very aligned to that particular brand. And hence, a lot of times you don't even need to go to customer care. That is a saving also for the organization. Similarly, organizations can encourage co-creation and it can also introduce challenges. Now, when you create alongside the consumer, they feel that they are an equal party to the entire activity of going about and creating a product or brand. Here, I'll give you an example of Salesforce.com, which actually encourages its users to build software applications using the base that they have provided. You can add modules, you can create something which is bespoke for your specific users, and then it becomes part of the larger offering. And it can then be taken up by other people should you license it to them. BMW allows customers to actually propose new ideas for in-car services. So, for example, one particular thing which came of it was the seat belt. Now, once you've sat inside a BMW, the seat belt electrically gets tighter to your chest, obviously saving you from, God forbid, a particular accident. But at the same point in time, it also enhances the sense of security which you get once you're inside a BMW. So these are factors which help consumers or would-be consumers, prospects, to align themselves and feel that the brand is truly a thinking brand that has thought through all these various very, very tiny nuances to give them the best capabilities in a brand. And why is this very important? Because when you're engaging the customers, you are getting them involved in the product development process and you are making things that are relevant to what they need. You are becoming innovative because you are leveraging what the consumer has in the heart of their hearts. Those insights are what you bring to the actual product design thinking laboratory or facility you have. Your people get exposed to those particular insights and they react to that, coming up with answers to all the questions or problems that the customer is posing at you, and you also answer them, and hence you tell them that we have thought of you. Hence their loyalty to you is also boosted, and your strength of community increases over time. So effective market demand forecasting, therefore, is always and has to primarily be driven by customers, and your innovations will also come from that particular pivotal understanding of customers and what their capabilities are to help you with their feedback. And the company's success is today going to be affected in this dynamic marketplace if you listen to your customers. You're forecasting and you're ranging from macroeconomic projections to buyer surveys and market testing, empowering businesses to anticipate what is going to shift and where the changes are going to happen. Which particular part of the economy is going to shift? Is it the market? Is it the customer spending power? Is it something else which is a remote factor? And you may not have pointed it out. And so therefore, hedging for those particular things, you're able to allocate resources to be better prepared for those scenarios. Now, marketing productivity, which you want for your profitability to actually end up with, you can use marketing productivity with very enhanced tools like dashboards, where you get to see the entire market goings on in one single glance. You put in metrics to measure how things will happen, and you mix your models to ensure precise investment decisions and measurable outcomes. So through all these equally important leverages, you create customer collaborations and you bring in your product use, you get feedback in place, and you encourage the co-creation of all these factors with your consumers and get a holistic approach combining analytical rigor with customer-centric creativity. And you help drive sustainable growth and get a competitive advantage, and you constantly evolve to meet the market landscape. With that, we will move on to the next part of the journey in module 19, which will tell you about how to get into specifically the research part. So until then, I shall see you and have a great time ahead. Thank you.